If you're like me, then you want to know as much as you can about the cruise before you actually get on board, so that way you're prepared. And this week, I've got to look at the things that you should know about if you've got a cruise coming up that Royal Caribbean really doesn't tell much about, up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Going on a cruise in 2021 and even early 2022 is going to be filled with some changes. Whether you're brand new to cruising or you went on cruises before the global pandemic, there's going to be some changes that are there. And of course, the cruise industry is always changing. Let's not pretend that pre-2020 that the industry was always exactly the same. Things are always changing with Royal Caribbean. That's actually one of the things I love about the company. Is a lot of innovation, but Royal Caribbean is not going to tell you every single thing to expect before your cruise. This is true even before the pandemic of things like dress codes and special theme nights. Before the pandemic, and still even the case today, if you wanted to know which night had Caribbean theme night or which night was going to have the white hot party night, they never told you that in advance. It was up to you to kind of figure it out based on talking to other cruisers who've been on the same ship as you or to look at a past cruise compass. Kind of along the same lines, there are some changes that have been made and some things that are going to be experienced on board the ship that you should know about that a lot of people are wondering about until you get on board the ship. They just simply have no idea. So I wanted to focus on a list of things that I think you should know about to help plan a cruise that Royal Caribbean just isn't going to be telling you in advance, but it's important to know. So that way, number one, you're aware of what it is. And number two, you don't feel like you're making a mistake or you're missing something. Let's start off with the fact that you need to wait to get on board the ship to book anything right now. Before the pandemic, you could book certain activities or even entertainment via the Royal Caribbean Cruise Planner website in the weeks leading up to your cruise. But now they have taken away that feature. And they may come back, but as of right now, you cannot book entertainment or activities, really anything that's not, especially restaurant or shore excursion, before your cruise until you actually get on board. So whether we're talking about comedy show tickets, the Aqua Theater shows, the Royal Theater shows, or things like the North Star or Ripcord by iFly, those can only be reserved once you get on board. So while you may see that option grayed out and you might be thinking to yourself, gee, I used to be able to book these things, or when can I book these things? You have to wait to get on board. Once you are on board your ship, as soon as you connect to Royal Caribbean's Wi-Fi, those options will become bookable. So a really good tip is as soon as you get on board, try to book as many things as you can, especially the high demand activities like the North Star or Ripcord by iFly. Those go very quickly. This is also true of special entertainment. So get on board the ship, connect to the Wi-Fi, and then maybe while you're having lunch on the embarkation day, check in for all those activities so that way you assure yourself of a spot. Something else that a lot of parents are discovering once they get on board the ship is that Adventure Ocean slots are limited and you have to sign up, and more importantly, they sell out. So there's a lot of protocols for COVID-19 on board a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. That's really not a surprise at all. But I think the biggest surprise for parents is that Adventure Ocean, while it is open, has very limited capacity and slots for these go quickly. If you've ever been to the Royal Caribbean nursery on board, the approach to getting a time slot is pretty much the same process. You get on board the ship, you sign your kids up, and then there are limited slots. To ensure that certain people don't just take up all the slots by the fact that they were there first, Royal Caribbean limits parents a certain amount of sessions per cruise. Depending on if your cruise is a 3-night cruise or 4-night cruise or a 7-night cruise, the amount of sessions or times available will vary. But essentially, they're going to limit you to a set amount of hours in the first day or so of the cruise to ensure that everybody has a fair chance to at least get some times. Then, later on in the cruise, at some point, they'll open up more hours for other parents to sign up for, their kids for more sessions. The issue is that these slots are very limited, and Royal Caribbean is still limiting the amount of sessions quite a bit. So the result is there's a pretty good chance there might be some nights where your kids cannot get into Adventure Ocean. Now, it really does depend on a couple of factors. Number one, how many kids are on your ship? Number two, how many kids are in the age range of your kids? Because don't forget, Adventure Ocean is broken up via age range, whether we're talking about Aquanauts, which is 3 to 5, Explorers, which is 6 to 8, or Voyagers, which is 9 to 11. And again, depending on how many kids are in each group, there may be more or less demand for each particular group in there. And then, of course, the X factor, which is how many kids will actually want to go to Adventure Ocean. Sometimes there's a lot of parents who bring their kids on board and don't send their kids up there, so that's something you can never anticipate. But these are all things that kind of play into that. So the key is you want to get on board the ship on embarkation day and go right to Adventure Ocean right when they open, which is usually 1 o'clock, sign your kids up, and then try to get time slots. In my opinion, you should be signing your kids up for the evening sessions. The morning and afternoon sessions, which are available during port days and sea days, are not usually very busy. So I would just run the risk of those selling out but the evening sessions are extremely critical to get a time slot for. Now, if you don't get a time slot, I'm going to share one of my favorite tips. This is like one of these mat hacks to get your kids in, even if they're sold out. So you say, okay, I want to get my kid in for night 4, and Adventure Ocean says, I'm sorry, well, you don't have any more time slots for your child there. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. Instead of getting a time slot right at 7 o'clock when Adventure Ocean opens, you're going to go back around, let's say 8 or even 9 o'clock. After about an hour or so, parents are picking their kids up. It's kind of strange to me that, kids go there at 7 o'clock and then within an hour or 90 minutes, they're pulling their kids out. Don't forget, by 10 o'clock, they start charging for Adventure Ocean. So I think a lot of parents are just leery of being charged for that. But you'd be surprised how many kids get picked up within an hour of being dropped off over there. And then time slots are available. Now, Royal Caribbean will not usually book time slots later on in the evening. So it's a really good idea to simply call in or simply show up and ask if any new slots have opened up because someone's already left. That works reasonably well for most nights. There's no guaranteed way to get a time slot every single night of the cruise, but you should be aware that the time slots for Adventure Ocean are definitely limited. Next up is the Windjammer, and a lot of people want to know, when will it be open for dinner? So whether or not you know this or not, the Windjammer has not been open for dinner for most cruises in 2021. With limited capacity, there just has not been a need for it. But as the cruises start to get a little more full, and we've talked about this on previous videos about the fact that Royal Caribbean is starting to increase the capacity of its ships, the Windjammer will open for dinner, assuming your ship has at least 50% capacity or more. Essentially, if your ship is more than half full, Royal Caribbean will open the Windjammer for dinner. If not, then they'll keep it closed for dinner. There's one more thing about the Windjammer that gets a lot of people spooked, and that is the fact you can make reservations for the Windjammer. When Royal Caribbean first restarted cruising, they had this idea that you were going to have to sign up for slots in the Windjammer for meals to ensure that it's not getting overly crowded. In practice, this has never actually happened. I have not been on any sailings, nor have I heard of anybody who's actually had to reserve time slots for the Windjammer, although the option will be there in the Royal Caribbean app. Whether or not you want to take advantage of it, it's up to you. I've never actually bothered with it because in practice, they have not had to do that, but something to be aware of as you start planning there. Speaking of the Royal Caribbean app, something else that Royal Caribbean was not telling you is exactly how the whole vaccination card photo validation works. So in the Royal Caribbean app, you're going to fill out before your cruise a couple of options like your passport information and your personal information. And there's a new option, add a photo of your vaccination card. So that way it can expedite the whole process in the cruise terminal. This is great. You take a photo, and then after you upload your photo, it will say, okay, we're going to validate the photo. Well, if you check back a day or two, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days later, it still says validating. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, something's gone wrong. I've done something wrong, or we're in trouble for some reason we don't even know yet. Not the case at all. So what Royal Caribbean is not telling you is that the vaccination card validation actually occurs much closer to your sailing. So the fact that you're going to be seeing potentially the validating status for your photos doesn't mean anything other than the fact that they just haven't gotten to your particular sailing yet. So much closer to your sailing, and typically we're talking about maybe within a week or so, then your status will automatically flip over to green once they do validate it. So don't read too much into the fact that the validation status has not changed after you uploaded your photos. It's just indicative of the fact that they can only process so many photos at a time because it's not an automated process, it's a manual process. Now, my next two things that we've got here are things that Royal Caribbean is not telling you, but these are things that they don't really advertise all that much, or that is more behooving on you to look it up. And I think they're important because a lot of people are just unaware of them. And again, they're just not heavily advertised as such. So the first thing I've got is that some ports will limit unvaccinated kids to cruise line excursions only. So this depends obviously on when you're going, but keep in mind that certain ports you're visiting will be limited to only Royal Caribbean shore excursions. Whether we're talking about for everybody or just families with unvaccinated children, there can be ports that limit you. And for a lot of families, they're going to be unaware of this because the list of these are usually buried a little bit in Royal Caribbean's protocols, and they're just not heavily advertised. And I'm like, hey, come book a shore excursion because your kids can't go do anything on your own. They generally kind of shy away from that. The protocols in general are really behooving on you to take the time to read them. And everybody should do that because it's important to be aware, and certainly being ignorant of the rules and then showing up and be like, I had no idea that the thousands of dollars I paid for this vacation had all these changes associated with them. Ignorance is never an excuse for anything, and this is true of certainly the cruise ship protocols as well. But I think a lot of families are a little bit surprised when they get on board because they're not aware that certain ports may require them to go on only Royal Caribbean shore excursions than on their own, per se. That's definitely a change compared to what cruising was like before the pandemic. All this being said, number one, you want to look up the protocols for your particular sailing. Royal Caribbean does list in the protocols area of their website specific ports that may apply that have specific restrictions as it relates to which ports you can visit on your own or through only Royal Caribbean. In addition to that, you may also get an email close to your detailing from Royal Caribbean detailing these as well. But the bottom line is you need to be aware of them, number one. Number two, you're going to want to plan in advance to potentially get a tour locked in, especially in certain ports where there are not many tours available. And lastly, if all else fails, if you're looking at all the options, saying, Matt, I just don't love what I'm seeing here on Royal Caribbean's website, consider the Private Journeys shore excursion option, which is a private shore excursion through Royal Caribbean in which you can customize your own tour. That way you're not limited to what Royal Caribbean offers. Now, admittedly, Private Journeys is not cheap. You're paying for a private shore excursion. The price is going to be higher than any group tour. But that being said, it gives you many more choices, especially in ports in which you're limited to only Royal Caribbean shore options. And the last thing I think that you should really know about that Royal Caribbean isn't saying a whole lot about, but it's important to know, is that the Cruise with Confidence program is coming to an end. So while not official, Royal Caribbean has hinted that more than likely, when the Cruise with Confidence program ends, this will be the end of it. That will not be extended. What is the Cruise with Confidence program, you ask? Well, this is the added flexibility that Royal Caribbean has added to be able to change your mind much closer to your sail date. Traditionally, when you book a cruise, you have up until final payment date to cancel your reservation without any penalty. The Cruise with Confidence program was added during the pandemic in order to give consumers a lot more confidence, if you will, that they could change their mind later on. So even after final payment date, you can cancel your cruise and get a 100% future cruise credit. The important date to know about is that Cruise with Confidence will extend to any cruises booked on or before December 17th, 2021, and sailing through April 30th, 2022. So if you already have a cruise booked, you are set. But if you're booking a cruise after December 17th, so that'd be December 18th, 2021 and beyond, and or a cruise obviously sailing beyond April 30th, 2022, then your cruise does not apply with Cruise with Confidence, and therefore, later on, if you were to change your mind or you wanted to cancel, you would not be able to do so and get a 100% future cruise credit after the final payment date. Again, if you booked your cruise already before December 17th, 2021, you're set, you're grandfathered in with the Cruise with Confidence program. But it's really important to know about this change because this has been in effect for well over a year now to have this program, and it's been really nice having it. I certainly appreciate having it because it just makes your life a whole lot easier that you can change your mind, especially if you had a non-refundable cruise fare. But this program is coming to an end, and it's important if you want to make a reservation now to lock it in and be able to take advantage of the Cruise with Confidence program going forward, then you wanted to do so before December 17th, 2021. So there you have it. There are some things that I think are really important to know about when it comes to planning a Royal Caribbean cruise right now. There's obviously way more than this, but this list is really about things that I just don't think Royal Caribbean says a whole lot, if anything, about before you get on board the ship. And for a lot of folks like myself who love being able to plan ahead and know what to expect, I hope that these tips help you out so that we have a better, easier cruise experience on board. Let me know in the comments which of these you think are the most important, and did I miss anything you really think is important to know about a cruise that Royal Caribbean really doesn't say a whole lot about? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you also like this video by hitting the like button, subscribe to our channel, and then turn on your notifications so that way YouTube lets you know when we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.